Hello, and welcome to today's program on rights, representation, and the power of storytelling. I'm Holly Copeland, Senior Director of Corporate Social Responsibility, Sustainability, and Impact at Horizon Therapeutics. Horizon is a proud sponsor of the Women, Equity, and Global Development Forum. Horizon recognizes the critical role businesses need to play in providing solutions to some of the biggest challenges facing our global community. Equality is a core tenet of ours, and we are committed to creating a diverse and inclusive workplace that takes definitive action on critical issues like pay equity and career opportunities. For our work, we have been recognized on Fortune's 2021 list as one of the best workplaces for women. Representation and inclusion matters, and the stories that we tell and who gets to tell those stories must be equitable. We are excited to present today's program, and I am pleased to introduce Ertharin Cousin, Distinguished Fellow Global Food and Agriculture at the Chicago Council on Global Affairs.
Hello, my name is Ertharin Cousin, and I'm a Distinguished Fellow of Global Food and Agriculture at the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. Thank you for joining us from across the globe for an important and timely conversation on rights, representation, and the power of storytelling. And thank you to the Chicago Council and our members and partners for joining us via YouTube for today's On the Record program. This event is part of the Women, Equity, and Global Development Forum. As a reminder, the Council is a nonprofit, independent, and nonpartisan platform. The views expressed by individuals we host are their own and do not represent institutional positions or views. Storytelling and media shape how we consume information and form opinions about culture, identity, and current events. Globally available to billions at the click of a button, storytelling can foster global understanding or perpetuate stereotypes and misinformation. Storytelling has the power to be transformative and empower identities as well as communities to educate audience, and storytelling can have seismic political and social effects. Given this unparalleled power, ensuring that the stories we tell are representative and inclusive of women and underrepresented groups is critical as we continue to transform the media landscape. It is my great honor to introduce an acclaimed director and journalist, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. Sharmeen is a Pakistani director, journalist, and activist. She is the recipient of numerous international accolades, including 2 Academy Awards, 6 Emmy Awards, and Sharmeen has been honored by the World Economic Forum and the International Center for Journalists for her work that led to legislative change. Sharmeen is known for her work in films that highlight issues of gender inequality and inspire critical social change. Sharmeen has helped found the Citizens Archive of Pakistan, a nonprofit organization that promotes community-wide interest in the culture and history of Pakistan. First question for you. What do diversity and representation mean to you as an international filmmaker and activist? Why does diversity and representation even matter?
You know, when I was growing up, and I was watching cartoons or Hollywood films, I never saw a reflection of myself. It was always someone else who was a hero. It was always someone else who was winning the battles. It was always someone else who was winning the accolades. And I could never imagine myself in those places and positions because I'd never seen myself on screen like that. And so when I became a filmmaker, it became really important for me to tell stories in which women and men see people like themselves as heroes, as women who fight for other women, as men who fight for women, who see representation. Because when you see someone who looks like you and talks like you and sounds like you know that if they could do it, you can do it. And I think that it's extremely important in the world that we live in today to have role models for children to aspire to become, for children to see heroes on television, on the big screen, and to say, that could be me. I see myself in them. And that's why diversity matters, because diversity on screen is a true representation of the diversity of the world. It is the world that we live in. We do not live in a singular world where only one language is spoken, where there's only one skin color and one way of thinking. The world is beautiful because we all exist in it. And we all need to be on screen, because then there is diversity, then there's no singular way of thinking, and there's competing alternative worldviews. And that's also important.
Sharmeen, that was an incredible answer. And the way you describe bringing love into representation through diverse images is powerful. The next question I have for you is, how can you use that power of that diversity of representation, that power that you've described of storytelling, to harness social change for the benefit of the broader society?
So I'll give you an example. I did an animated film last year, in which I showed a young girl who was a child bride. Okay, and I showed that the father wanted to marry the daughter off because that was part of his culture. And as he was getting the daughter married off, he realized that he was making a mistake. It was too late. So for his younger daughter, he decided to invest in her education. So when that film came out, it's called Sitara, Let Girls Dream, and it played on Netflix. And when it came out, so many fathers from around the world wrote into us to say, you showed me that a change of heart can take place. You showed me that even if your culture binds you to certain things, you should have the bravery or the foresight or the courage to break free from it. So thank you for showing me that that is possible. And I think that's what film does. Film shows you what is possible. It forces you to empathize. It makes you walk in other people's shoes. And when you do that, you're a better human being because you empathize at other people's situations. You look at other people and you realize that their world is not black and white, that there's a lot of gray over there, that your experiences are your experiences, but you cannot discount other people's experiences in that way. And I think that the power of film is creating empathy, is helping you think about other people and walking in their shoes. And to be honest, showing you a perspective you never thought you could adapt or adopt, but because you've heard a story and you've seen a story or you felt a story, you know that that story, when that story resonates with you, it does change the way you look at an issue.
And I appreciate the power of the work that you are doing as an individual. I'm a pragmatic optimist. And according to the Hollywood Diversity Report in 2020, published by UCLA, even though women made meaningful progress in the film sector over the last years in areas such as film directors and writers, and women, especially women of color, still remain underrepresented, as only 1.5 out of 10 film directors are women. And given the media's history of misrepresentation and lack of inclusion, what role do filmmakers, producers, companies, and audiences, particularly those who are not people of color, play in elevating underrepresented voices?
Listen, as a filmmaker who's always advocated for women, let me tell you, there is no industry in the world where women are equitable to men. Okay, we got to fight our way everywhere. We got to kick open those doors. We got to scratch, snarl. We got to get in there. Okay, we got to get in there. Like, it's dirty. It's downright dirty. Okay, you know, there'll be people who'll say, we're going to give you opportunity. Of course we want to hire more women. Of course, we just can't find those women. We don't know if women like those exist. The problem is that we are finding that there is a real pressure now for having representation. It's not just lip service. Like, there is, like, the Academy of Motion Arts and Picture is also helping. Like, they're saying, well, if you want your film to be considered for Best Picture, here are the criteria. You've got to hire minorities, you've got to hire women, you've got to do all of these things. And we know that the only time when you mandate something, for example, when companies decide to mandate the fact that women had to be in boardrooms, that's when women were allowed to be in boardrooms. Otherwise, we'd still have no woman in a boardroom. Let's listen. The world is run by men. Okay, they control resources, they control everything. Okay, and in order to give us space, they have to relinquish space for themselves. So who wants to relinquish space in a world that's full of, you know, people who want power and more space? So we just got to use what we can. We've got to mandate the fact that you need to have women in every single department. So it's not just it. You can't just say, oh, we had a woman in a film. No, how many women were in your edit team? How many women were in your lighting team? How many women were in costume? How many women were in makeup? How many women were DPs? You know, what is the percentage of women in your film? What is the percentage of minorities in your film? How does your script speak to those experiences? What is the diversity that you're bringing to the table? I say mandate it. I say you can't be eligible for awards, because that's what everyone really absolutely wants. Okay, and I think that once you start putting these mandates in place, you will find that women will be pushed into these spaces. You know, they say, and I've heard this often, we couldn't find a woman to do this. And I'm like, well, you've never given a woman an opportunity to do that. So you've got to allow and open the gates for women to get in there. And so, yeah, I'm one to believe, mandate it. You know, say X percentage of your workforce has to be women and minorities, and then you'll see them come in. We're seeing companies change their culture because of boardrooms. We've got to do the same in the film industry.
I get excited because so much of what you say while we're in different industries resonates so well with me, and I'm sure will resonate with many of our other women viewers and listeners. Then as you see organizations like Netflix and the Annenberg Inclusion Initiative doing exactly the kind of demand, making exactly the kinds of demands that you've just suggested, I go back again to my role as that pragmatic optimist, because it wasn't so many years ago that we had Academy Awards so white, and because there were no
I know.
awardees.
I was the one who won that year.
Oh, really?
I was the sole person of color that won the year the Academy was so white.
Yes. So how do we ensure that this is not just a moment in time, that the initiatives that are underway, that are transforming the industry, become commitments and part of the culture and become part of the structure of the industry? And how do we move beyond an initiative and a program to changing the mindsets that will support that structural inclusion?
So the doors are opening, and many of us are walking through them. Now, when we hire, we need to bring more women in. When we are asked who's going to be part of our team, we need to make sure that we recruit women to be part of our team. So a crack was left open. We slid our way through that door, and we are now on the other side. And now we know how to get there. So we've got to take others with us, because if enough women get into the film industry, if enough women slide through that door, then you can't close that door because we're already on the other side. So I think the onus very much rests on us now to say, let's get there. Let's do this. I mean, in my own home country of Pakistan, I will tell you this, that um, women can never make films here, okay, because there's no resources, there's no platform, there's nothing. But a few of us have slid through that door. So I launched this initiative called Pataha Pictures, and Pataha means fireworks. And it's literally providing a platform to emerging women filmmakers who want small grants and mentorship to slide through that door. So that's a small initiative I've taken here, but I did it because I was able to get through the door. That's what we need to do on a much bigger level globally.
Well, there's a big difference, I think you will agree, between the culture of women in Hollywood and women in Pakistan. And earlier this year, in addition to the program you've described, you also launched the Whites in the Flag digital platform that centers around the voices and storytelling of women and minorities in Pakistan. How much of your work in Pakistan is about social advocacy and education? And how much of it involves pushing for legislative changes in Pakistan? And speak to the audience and speak to me, because I want to know, how do you overcome those cultural challenges that limit the ability of women in Pakistan and other parts of the world to perform work in the way that you are doing today?
So I look at inequality in my country, again, as a power struggle. We are a deeply patriarchal society where men control all the cards. They control property, they control money, they control who a woman gets married to, when she gets married, where she goes to school, what her life is going to be like. It's less about culture and more about power. And the minute you begin to think about that, then you begin to realize how you can break through that power. So I do a lot of work because I'm inspired by the person who founded my country, Jinnah. And he was very clear from day one in 1947, when the world was a very different place. He has this infamous, and I use the word infamous, quote, where he said there are two powers in the world, the sword and the pen. And then there is a third power, even greater than those two, and that is the power of a woman. And so he said that in 1947, that made me realize that this man was a very progressive man, that the foundation of this country was laid by progressive people who knew about equality, who knew about the fact that, and who wanted and desired women to be walking shoulder to men. And somewhere along the way, we lost our, we lost the track that was laid out to us. But my generation and the generation below me is even sassier, is like, I want those rights back. And I want to make sure that the rights that are enshrined in my constitution are given to me. And so we continue to speak up, we continue to speak out, because we know what's at stake. We have a country right next to us, Afghanistan, which has recently been given back to the Taliban. And I say given back because it's literally been given back to the Taliban. And every morning we wake up and read about what is happening to all of these women who, look, life was never ideal for Afghan women. It was not ideal under the Americans. It's not ideal under, but so many women are unable to follow their dreams and unable to do the things that they wanted to do. And we don't want that in this country. And that is the thing that makes me want to continue to fight, because I want for my daughters to have a more equitable world.
Well, you just led right into my next question, and that is about Afghanistan. Because, as you said, they're right next door. So there are Afghan women both in the country and in the diaspora who are watching you today. How can those women address the issues of power that you've just described, to support their future opportunities through filmmaking as an advocacy tool, or if not filmmaking, what advice would you give to women in Afghanistan today who are facing this new power challenge?
I think the thing that I can say is that the world is a very different place today than it was 20 years ago. And even the rhetoric that is coming out of Afghanistan about women is not what it was in the 1990s when the Taliban were in power. So there is like, women can go to university, but it can only be a gender segregated university. Women may be allowed to play sports, but there'll be gender segregated sports. So it's like, it's not the blanket ban that was in the 1990s. It's almost like, here is Taliban 2.0. So it's hard to say what women should be doing, because I don't know what the limits of the people running that country are. If the world engages with the Taliban, if the world provides legitimacy to the Taliban, if the world says, okay, we will unfreeze your accounts, you've got to get women to go to school, okay, we will give you the aid that you need, but women have to have a power, have a voice in your government. So it's almost like a carrot and stick sort of relationship. The further we isolate the Afghans, the worse it's going to be for the women. We have to continue to engage with the Afghans. We have to continue to say that one of the worst humanitarian disasters is about to hit Afghanistan, where more than 1 million children might die from hunger. Okay, we've got to say, we will give you the food and we will give you the aid, but you need to have women back in hospitals as doctors and as nurses, and we need to have women back as aid workers, and we need to allow women to drive, and we need to allow women to run their businesses. If you isolate a country to the extent that the men who run it feel that they've lost everything, they will come harder on women. Because as we know, in any war, the first casualty is a woman.
We often talk about not only are women the first casualty, but women eat last, and women are the bearers of the burdens of the challenges of power. And you've spoken so well to women regarding this issue and how things are changing. We've run out of time, but before I let you go, Sharmeen, what do you think are the stories the world needs to hear more of right now?
The world needs to see more diverse heroes. The world needs to see Muslim heroes, and the world needs to see heroes that come from all skin tones, black, beige, brown. The world needs to feel as diverse as it is in reality on screen, which sadly it does not.
Thank you, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, for being with us today.
Thank you.
We're very appreciated for the work you do.